Hello, believers, non believers, and everyone in between. You're listening to Stories with Sapphire. I am Sapphire Sandalo. Now get cozy and open your mind because it's story time. Maayong hapon, among mga higala. My accent's still so bad. Welcome to Stories with Sapphire. No, this is not Stories with Sapphire Live. This is Vibe Stream Stories, scary stories to chill to. This is the live stream that I do every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Welcome, Lemishrain, Reg, Girl, Casper, Michaelan Dingle, Laurel Refia, Juicy, Cringe Edits, Mimi24, Fatuma Maingwa, Kaito. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce a lot of these. Mr. Peakman, Sophia Zapatabruna, Belixer, Megan Brand, Carson Phelps. Happy Thursday. Maayong Juebe, I think is Juebe is the Cebuano. I am, if you didn't already know, I'm trying to learn Cebuano for for life because my family is Cebuano. But also I want to be like somewhat fluent by the time I go to the Philippines at the end of the year for a family reunion. So, na-practice ko tanan adlaw. I've been practicing every day. So, if bistak mo, I'm still so slow. The pag-chat sa Cebuano para maka-practice. Wow, so bad, so slow. Hinay. Anyways, that's not why you're all here. You're here because it is time to read stories. We are on the third book. Isa, duha, tulo. Ikatulo? Is that how you say third? Sorry, y'all. Here's the thing. The thing about learning a new language, you have to be willing to sound stupid and wrong. So I'm trying to get over that fear because I think when we become adults, we like overthink everything, and it also doesn't help when certain family members are always roasting you on being wrong and having an American accent. So I just told myself I'm gonna just work through it. Also, I mean, I'm not multilingual like at all, so I'm just so fascinated by how people can think in multiple languages. So I'm trying to get to a point where I can think in Cebuano, but that's not working yet. But that's how I'm practicing though. So like when I'm walking around, I try to narrate in my head what's happening, even though it's very, very simple. Like naglakad ko karon, I am walking now. Nakita og kwan, I see something. Just to get me like thinking, you know? Anyways. So wait, hang on, there's a couple questions. Oh, Lemishrain asks, what are your pronouns? My pronouns are she, her. Thank you for asking. All right. You ready for this? Okay. Our first story today is called The Black Dog. It was 11 o'clock at night. Peter Rothberg was in bed on the second floor of the old house where he lived alone. It had gotten so chilly, he went downstairs to turn up the heat. As Peter was on his way back to bed, a black dog ran down the stairs. It passed him and disappeared into the darkness. "Where did you come from?" Peter said. He had never seen the dog before. He turned on all the lights and looked in every room. He could not find the dog anywhere. He went outside and brought in the 2 watchdogs he kept in the backyard, but they acted as if they were the only dogs in the house. The next night, again, at 11 o'clock, Peter was in his bedroom. He heard what sounded like a dog walking around in the room above him. He dashed upstairs and threw open the door. The room was empty. He looked under the bed. He looked in the closet. Nothing. But when he got back to his bedroom, he heard a dog running down the stairs. It was the black dog. He tried to follow it, but again, he could not find where it had gone. From then on, every night at 11, Peter heard the dog walking in the room above him. The room was always empty. But after he left, the dog would come out of hiding, run down the stairs, and disappear. One night, Peter's neighbor waited with him for the dog. At the usual time, they heard it above them. Then, they heard it on the stairs. When they went out into the hall, it was standing at the foot of the stairs, looking up at them. The neighbor whistled, and the dog wagged its tail. Then it was gone. Things went on this way until the night Peter decided to bring his watchdogs into the house again. Maybe this time they would find the black dog and drive it away. Just before 11, he took them up to his bedroom and left the door open. Then, he heard the black dog moving around above him. His dogs pricked up their ears and ran to the door. Suddenly, they bared their teeth and snarled and backed away. Peter could not see the black dog or hear it, but he was sure that it had entered his room. His dogs barked and snapped. They darted forward nervously, then backed away again. Suddenly, one of them yelped. It began bleeding, then dropped to the floor, its neck torn open. A minute later, it was dead. Peter's other dog backed into a corner, whimpering. Then everything was still. The next night, Peter's neighbor came back with a pistol. Again, they waited in his bedroom. At 11 o'clock, the black dog came down the stairs. As before, it looked up at them and wagged its tail. When they started toward it with the pistol, it growled and disappeared. That was the last Peter saw of the black dog, but it did not mean that the dog was gone. Now and then, always at 11, he heard it moving around above him. Once he heard it running down the stairs. He never managed to see it again, but he knew that it was there. Then we got a cool little picture upstairs. So, there's a lot of black dogs in a lot of different types of lore. If you're familiar with the black shuck in the UK, it's like considered an omen of death if you see it. It's like a giant black dog with red eyes. There is also, I don't know if it has an official name, but if you see something that kind of looks like a shadow black dog, it could potentially be, there's certain indigenous tribes that use these black dogs as sort of like supernatural night guards. So if you see them, it's like they're marking their territory and you better like get out of there because they're gonna cut you. Those are the ones I know. I know there's more, but it's escaping my memory right now. Okay, ready for your next story? This one's a little shorter. This one's called Footsteps. Liz was doing her homework at the dining room table. Her younger sister Sarah was asleep upstairs. Their mother was out, but she was expected back any minute. When the front door opened and shut, Liz called, "Hello, Mama!" But her mother didn't answer, and the footsteps Liz heard were heavier, like a man's. "Who's there?" she called. No one replied. She heard whoever it was walk through the living room, then up the stairs to the second floor. The footsteps moved from one bedroom to another. Again, Liz called, "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped. Then she thought, oh my God, Sarah's in her bedroom. She ran upstairs to Sarah's room. Only Sarah was there, and she was asleep. Liz looked in the other rooms, but found no one. She went back down to the dining room, scared out of her wits. Soon she heard footsteps again. They were coming down the stairs into the living room. Now they went into the kitchen. Then the door between the kitchen and the dining room slowly began to open. Get out! Liz screamed. The door slowly closed. The footsteps moved out of the kitchen, through the living room, toward the front door. The door opened and shut. Liz ran to the window to see who it was. No one was in sight, nor were there any footprints in the fresh snow that had been falling. You know what I will say, because I remember I was roasting these stories last week, how I feel like a lot of these, it's like, oh, I'm interacting with someone, oh, and then I find out they're dead. Like, so I did like how these last couple ones were not that. Adam Lombardo, thank you for the super chat. There's a black dog in the Bell Witch story. Okay. All right. Ooh, this one's called Like Cat's Eyes. As Jim Brand lay dying, his wife left him with his nurse and went into the next room to rest. She sat in the dark, staring into the night. Suddenly, Mrs. Brand saw headlights come rapidly up the driveway. Oh no, she thought. I don't want visitors now. Not now. But it wasn't a car bringing a visitor. It was an old hearse, with maybe a half dozen small men hanging from the sides. At least, that's what it looked like. The hearse screeched to a stop. The men jumped off and stared up at her, their eyes glowing with a soft yellow light like cat's eyes. She watched with horror as they disappeared into the house. An instant later, they were back, lifting something into the hearse. Then they drove off at high speed, wheels squealing, the gravel in the driveway flying in all directions. At that moment, the nurse came in to say that Jim Brand had died. Pretty straightforward, predictable. Ooh, this one's called On the Edge. So these stories, you will say that these stories could not happen, yet some say they did happen. Okay. Alistair, the local demon uncle. Oof, I hate it when I interact with someone dead who I thought was alive. It's so creepy. Here's the thing. So I've only seen dead people in my dreams. I have not seen them walking around. I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that. But, sorry, my nose is like really shiny. What was I saying? Oh, dead people. From what I hear from people who can see dead people, is that they look just like regular people until you notice one thing that's wrong. So, for example, this one person said, like, they were talking to someone and then they noticed that they just had no feet. Like, they were just hovering above the ground. They had no feet. Another person said that, like, they were talking to someone who had no eyes. Like, just no eyes in the sockets. Because, like, they look totally normal and then you notice something's wrong and you're like, oh, this person's dead. That's creepy as hell. But I like, is that something you can get used to? I don't know. Laurel Raffia, I had a ghost come for me at a funeral when I was 7. Oh, wow. That's actually pretty cool. Yeah, see, well, I don't know if you said comfort, so I'm assuming it wasn't a scary experience. But yeah, not all paranormal experiences are scary. Most of mine are not. Most of mine are just like cool things of like my ancestors doing cool stuff for me. Okay, y'all ready for our next one? All right, this one's called Bess. John Nicholas, these names. John Nicholas raised horses. He had many horses of all kinds, but his favorite was Bess, a gentle old mare he had grown up with. He no longer rode her, for all she could do now was just amble along. Bess spent her days grazing peacefully in a meadow. That summer, for the fun of it, John Nicholas went into a fortune teller's booth. The fortune teller studied her cards. "I see danger ahead for you," she said. "Your favorite horse will cause you to die. I don't know when, but it will happen. It is in the cards." John Nicholas laughed. The idea that Bess would cause his death was nonsense. She was as dangerous as a bowl of soup. I like that. Yet from then on, whenever he saw her, he remembered the fortune teller's warning. That fall, a farmer from the other end of the county asked if he could have Bess. He had been thinking that the old horse would be perfect for his children to ride. "That's a good idea," John said. "It would be fun for them, and it would give Bess something to do." Later, John told his wife about it. "Now Bess won't kill me," he said, and they both laughed. A few months later, he saw the farmer who had taken her. "How's my Bess?" he asked. "Oh, she was fine for a while," the farmer said. "The children loved her. Then she got sick. I had to shoot her to put her out of her misery. It was a shame." Despite himself, Sean breathed a sigh of relief. He had often wondered if in some crazy way, through some strange accident, Bess would kill him. Now, of course, she couldn't. "I'd like to see her," said John, "just to say goodbye. She was my favorite." The bones of the dead horse were in a far corner of the man's farm. John kneeled down and patted Bess's sun-bleached skull. Just then, a rattlesnake, which had made its home inside the skull, sank its fangs into John Nicholas's arm and killed him. What? Look at that. And then there's a cool little ghosty horse. Sorry, I'm reading the comments. Ooh, all right. This is a classic. I feel like this is the one. I actually had no idea it was in the third book. I thought it was in the original one. This is, when you think of scary stories to tell in the dark, this is the story I guarantee everyone thinks of. And I'm not even going to tell you. I want everyone in the chat to say what story this is, because I'm almost positive that you know. It's the most famous one, in my opinion. Some, I don't know. I mean, a lot of them are really famous, but this is the most famous one, I think, because I just remember reading it as a kid and being like, what? You could do that in kids' books? Adam Lombardo. Rattlesnake bites are generally not fatal. Yeah. Alvin Schwartz is not a herpetologist. Is that a snake expert? Dosvix. Yo, and I remember my whole family disappeared out of nowhere at my house and reappeared like literally the most out-of-pocket experience ever. What the hell? Laurel, I was getting ready to be sad and then just rattlesnake. Yeah, like you know where I thought the story was going? I thought it was going to be something like her death made him want to like end his own life. That's really dark and dumb. Yeah. People in the chat got it. All right, here we go. It is Harold. We all know this one. Classic. All right, you ready? We're gonna make this one good. I haven't read the actual story in a really long time, so I'm really excited about this. When it got hot in the valley, Thomas and Alfred drove their cows up to a cool, green pasture in the mountains to graze. Usually they stayed there with the cows for 2 months. Then they brought them down to the valley again. The work was easy enough, but oh, it was boring. All day the two men tended their cows. At night they went back to the tiny hut where they lived. They ate supper and worked in the garden and went to sleep. It was always the same. Then Thomas had an idea that changed everything. "Let's make a doll the size of a man," he said. "It would be fun to make, and we could put it in the garden to scare away the birds." "It should look like Harold," Alfred said. Harold was a farmer they both hated. They made the doll out of old sacks stuffed with straw. They gave it a pointy nose like Harold's and tiny eyes like his. Then they added dark hair and a twisted frown. Of course, they also gave it Harold's name. Each morning on their way to the pasture, they tied Harold to a pole in the garden to scare away the birds. Each night, they brought him inside so that he wouldn't get ruined if it rained. When they were feeling playful, they would talk to him. One of them might say, "How are the vegetables growing today, Harold?" Then the other, making believe he was Harold, would answer in a crazy voice, "Very slowly." They both would laugh, but not Harold. Whenever something went wrong, they took it out on Harold. They would curse at him, even kick him or punch him. Sometimes one of them would take the food they were eating, which they were both sick of, and smear it on the doll's face. "How do you like that stew, Harold?" he would ask. "Well, you'd better eat it, or else." Then the two men would howl with laughter. One night, after Thomas had wiped Harold's face with food, Harold grunted. "Did you hear that?" Alfred asked. "It was Harold," Thomas said. "I was watching him when it happened. I can't believe it." "How could he grunt?" Alfred asked. "He's just a sack of straw. It's not possible." "Let's throw him in the fire," said Thomas, "and that will be that." "Let's not do anything stupid," said Alfred. "We don't know what's going on. When we move the cows down, we'll leave him behind. For now, let's just keep an eye on him." So they left Harold sitting in a corner of the hut. They didn't talk to him or take him outside anymore. Now and then, the doll grunted, but that was all. After a few days, they decided there was nothing to be afraid of. Maybe a mouse or some insects had gotten inside Harold and were making those sounds. So Thomas and Alfred went back to their old ways. Each morning, they put Harold out in the garden, and each night they brought him back into the hut. When they felt playful, they joked with him. When they felt mean, they treated him as badly as ever. Then one night, Alfred noticed something that frightened him. "Harold is growing," he said. "I was thinking the same thing," Thomas said. "Maybe it's just our imagination," Alfred replied. "We have been up here on this mountain too long." The next morning, while they were eating, Harold stood up and walked out of the hut. He climbed up on the roof and trotted back and forth like a horse on its hind legs. All day and all night long, he trotted like that. In the morning, Harold climbed down and stood in a far corner of the pasture. The men had no idea what he would do next. They were afraid. They decided to take the cows down into the valley that same day. When they left, Harold was nowhere in sight. They felt as if they had escaped a great danger and began joking and singing. But when they had gone only a mile or two, they realized they had forgotten to bring the milking stools. Neither one wanted to go back for them, but the stools would cost a lot to replace. "There really is nothing to be afraid of," they told one another. After all, what could a doll do? They drew straws to see which one would go back. It was Thomas. "I'll catch up with you," he said, and Alfred walked on toward the valley. When Alfred came to a rise in the path, he looked back for Thomas. He didn't see him anywhere, but he did see Harold. The doll was on the roof of the hut again. As Alfred watched, Harold kneeled and stretched out a bloody skin to dry in the sun. Harold, 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 Harold. Whose skin is that? Is that Alfred's skin? Not Alfred. Thomas. Oh, it's Thomas's skin. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, that was really creepy. It's probably just, I feel like it's... Also, Why is that one like smack in the middle of the book? It's the best one. That should be the last one. But I also think it's like one of the scarier ones just because like it is so simple. It's like they made it all, it came to life, and then it skinned the guy. Like, that's it. I feel like that's really creepy. Laurel, it's like how some people say dolls will come to life if you treat them a certain way. They put a certain energy into Harold and he came to life. Adam Lombardo, thank you for the super chat. It would be more horrifying if Harold stole the men's identities and opened a bunch of credit cards in their names and went to Vegas. Yeah, that would be a good alternate ending. Okay. All right, I feel like also it is time to go, but you also just like can't top Harold. What are we gonna do next week? You know what? Once I run out of book stories, I'll probably move on to creepypastas. Maybe? I don't know. We'll see. Those are such a mixed bag. But thank you for joining me. Salamat para join shit. See how bad I am? Join Nako? Is that what you say? Or how would I say thank you for being salamat? Salamat para na being diddy. That's not right. Ay. Anyways, thank you for coming, and I will see you next week, same time. Next week there's going to be a new podcast episode. I will say, so I am taking a break with the animated YouTube videos just because I picked up some other projects that are taking up more time than I thought they would, and so I'm not able to do the podcast and a animated video right now. But I'm hoping that changes. Got a bunch of cool stuff coming up that I'm really excited about and can't talk about. But just to know that cool stuff's happening. So when I'm not active on my YouTube, it's not because I'm sad, it's because I got cool stuff going on. All right. Have a great rest of your day, my own gabi. And ayo.